Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hey everyone, I'm Case Aiken. Now, I want you all to journey with me back to 2001, because I want to talk about a launch game for the Game Boy Advance. Specifically, I want to talk about Castlevania Circle of the Moon. But to have that conversation, I do need to set up a little bit of context about why that game mattered and what it was like to play it at the time. So, Castlevania Circle of the Moon was a launch game for the Game Boy Advance. Being a child of the 90s, I was an avid Game Boy player. I owned both the original DMG and then later a Game Boy Color and loved them to death. I also loved my Super Nintendo, and the promise of a Super Nintendo on the go made the Game Boy Advance seem really attractive to me. So attractive to me that even now, 25 years later, I'm still so influenced that the episode art for this series is based on the Game Boy Advance. There was a lot of hype for this thing coming out. There were a lot of cool games that were announced that were going to be genre-defining or amazing ports of games that had never been able to be done in a portable fashion before. And so I was extremely excited for the console as a whole. I mean, sure, it wasn't perfect. It had no backlight, as we all know, and the battery life was only fine. But it was a magical system. Now, let's talk about that launch game, Castlevania Circle of the Moon. This was announced as a spiritual sequel to Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which I don't think I need to explain how important that game was to gamers at the time. Well, maybe I should at least explain how important it was to me. And in that regard, it was very important, but it wasn't a game that I actually had played that much. See, my cousins had it because I had recommended it to their mother to buy them for their birthday. But aside from very brief periods where I got to play, I didn't own a PlayStation and I didn't have a chance to really explore this, massive, epic, wonderful game that everyone talked about that was so well reviewed. It was just a game that I knew by reputation as being amazing. But I did know that it was very similar to games like Super Metroid, which I absolutely adored and had played to death. It was very similar to games like Metroid 2, a game that was probably, now that I'm thinking about it, my introduction to the Metroidvania genre. So it's entirely fair to say that I was extremely excited for Circle of the Moon. It was a chance for me to own the system and to play the game, and to play it on the go, which is how I was first introduced to the genre in the first place. And then the Game Boy Advance came out, and I bought it, and I bought the game. It was incredible. It wasn't the only game I bought at the time. I also bought Tony Hawk 2, which was also incredible, and I should probably talk about at some point on here because it deserves to be discussed. But we're going to stick with Circle of the Moon. So Circle of the Moon is, yes, it's a spiritual sequel to Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It is, however, nowadays kind of dismissed. It's supposedly out of continuity, out of canon for the Castlevania series, and it is a little bare bones from the outset. It is clearly working with new hardware and doing the best it can, but the game series would go on to have greater heights as it would go, at least as far as the critics are concerned. But for me, this was the most mature Castlevania game that I had had the chance to play in depth. I had played the Nintendo Castlevanias a lot, but I hadn't actually really touched the Super Nintendo editions. So this was a chance for me to get back into a franchise that had a lot of storied roots and was moving into a genre that I really appreciated, and just in general was one that I was excited to try. And having had the chance to replay it recently, I have to say it holds up pretty well, even if there are more impressive entries in the series. Because we have to talk about what a triumph it was just to be able to walk around with this game. And then, for them to do so many things so right. The music is amazing. The visual style is great. I honestly prefer it over the later two Castlevania games. It's a little dark, but hey, you know what? It actually looks great for a Castlevania game because it's supposed to be dark and creepy and scary, but at the same time adventurous, and you feel awesome as you play through this game. The upgrade systems really make your character move and act in a way that feels very natural, in a way that other Castlevania games feel more like you have to be in menus or swapping around like items and so forth. Like in Castlevania Circle of the Moon, most of the upgrades end up being just very basic button press combinations for what you are already doing. And that's awesome. The magic system also, we should note, was easy to hack. And so here's the deal. The magic system in Circle of the Moon requires you to have quote unquote cards that will pair in such a way that they actually interact in to give you magical spells that you can activate. As long as you have the ability to use a combination of cards, so you just need one of one type and one of the other type, you are able to activate your spell transformation trigger. And when you activate it, you can pause the game, move the cursor over to any other card, unpause the game, and you'll be able to activate the powers associated with those cards, even if you don't already have them. So it's extremely easy to hack, and thus you can system break the game pretty easily. Not amazingly. The magic system isn't really that mobility focused, but it does allow you to get through some fights that you wouldn't otherwise. And that's good because the game isn't easy. In fact, it's a game that has a very strange scaling difficulty system based around intentionally restricting what abilities your character has based on profiles you get, although they only unlock after you beat the game the first time. So most players are probably unaware of that aspect of the game. But it's a challenging game. It's a Castlevania game. They typically are relatively challenging, understanding the fact that being a Metroidvania, as you get more and more powers throughout the game, you become more and more of a juggernaut just tearing your way through this castle. And I have to tell you, this game does hold up very well. I was able to replay it recently on the big screen on my Xbox with the Castlevania Advance Collection, and it is just a fabulous game that is a lot of fun to play. I've worked my way through the trilogy now, the Game Boy Advance games that are all fantastic, but I still have a soft spot for this one. It was my gateway, and more importantly, it has a gameplay loop that is quite rewarding. The momentum of your character as you move around, the rhythm of your whip, everything has just the right click in a way that I actually get annoyed by the protagonists in the next two games because they just don't quite feel as good. And that's weird because, this is the most bare bones in some regards. The run animation is a 2-frame run. It's just not as robust a set of graphics as you would get later, but the actual feel for the character just seems to be spot on, and that's kind of incredible. When you're looking at the library of the Game Boy Advance, it's easy to focus on the actual Metroid games that came out on that system, both of which are in my upper echelons of great games of all time. And it's easy to look at all of the Metroidvania games that were not actual Metroid games, specifically all these Castlevania games. But Circle of the Moon is usually the least attended to in that group, and yet it is my favorite. And I realize a lot of that is rose-tinted stained glass goggles talking, but it's one that, hit the spot exactly right when it came out, and then when I came back to it years later, still felt right, still felt good. So this gets into then the question that you have to ask when we're talking about a game that is 25 years old. Is it worth playing today? And I would say absolutely yes. It is available on the Castlevania Advance Collection, which you can get on all of your systems, and it plays pretty well. In fact, the collection itself is certainly worth your money. And you might as well play all of the Advance games on there. And this one, for me, like I said, hit the spot the most. I can see why Aria of Sorrow is the fan favorite in the bunch. But looking at Castlevania Circle of the Moon, the character moves well, the music is great, the graphics are great. Yeah, we could use some more frames of animation, but on a well-lit screen, you don't have to worry about the darkness being a factor. And it just plays as a really fun exploration game. A search action game, as they've tried to rebrand the Metroidvania genre title. But hey, if you're listening to this episode, either you just listen to every Fun and Game side quest episode, or you are familiar at least with the Castlevania series and you're kind of curious what I have to say. Look, obviously this is not as good a game as Symphony of the Night, nor is it going to wow people the way that Aria of Sorrow did. But It is a really good entry in the franchise. If you are looking for a good Metroidvania game, this is a good Metroidvania game. So yeah, you should probably check it out. Like I said, it's available on most platforms now, and that's pretty cool. And after you check that out, you should check out stuff that I work on, such as podcasts. I am the host of Another Pass and Men of Steel, both on the Certain Point of View podcast network, along with Fun Games. I also do all the videos for the Certain POV media channel, which you can find on YouTube. So check out us on YouTube there. But otherwise, just, I hope you have a great week and happy gaming.
Hello, my name is Aaron. I'm one half of Super Pod Saga, a topical variety video game podcast fueled entirely by nostalgia and unleaded gasoline. Super Pod Saga, we discuss a different video game topic each and every week. We have new episodes every single Monday covering a different video game topic. More than anything, we want to entertain our listeners and make you feel like you're one of the boys, like you're hanging out at a campfire with some of your best zany, caffeine-powered buddies and just talking about your favorite games and all that stuff. Stop on down to Super Pod Saga. It's on every podcatcher there is. If it's not, let me know and we'll get on it. Again, Super Pod Saga, stop on by.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.